Greetings and welcome to Mog News with your hosts, Mina and Zakar, bringing you new developments in the Final Fantasy XIV Realm Reborn universe, along with their unique insights on the topics. Let's turn things over to our anchors to find out what they have in store for us today.
Good day and welcome to another episode of Mog News. I'm your host Zakarn, and with me today is Mina.
Hello.
And we have a couple of special guests today. We have Shardfyre.
Howdy.
And Stuzack.
Hello.
Alright, there's been a lot of developments in the Final Fantasy XIV universe recently. There was a Game Watch interview with Yoshi-P where there was a lot of interesting information exchanged there, as well as the letter from the producer live at PAX. Much of the same information in each. There's little extra tidbits, and I'd like to sort of try going over some of it. I kind of want to start off with something that has been really a big concern with a lot of people, is the gil selling.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue.
I find that to be a big problem.
It is. They've taken over the Shout channel, which is very regrettable. They're sending tells to people now with advertisements. These guys are worse than the bloody Jehovah's. I swear.
Yeah. Well, on the end of gil sellers, they've always been this way. Every MMO that I've ever played, they are the exact same. They're relentless in any trade channel, any general channel, and they still tell people. The problem is the player base is actually supporting these people by buying their gil.
Exactly. It's a terrible situation because they keep doing it because they're actually making money doing it, and they're being enabled by the players. Yet the players still complain because people who are legit are really frustrated by it.
Of course, and remembering obviously that the number of players who actually engage in real money trading versus those who don't is probably a very small number. Unfortunately, whenever there's any kind of market in place, that's what propagates the messages. But probably more important for the developers and everyone else who wants them to stop are the measures that they're actually taking in order to get it sorted.
Exactly, and they are taking measures. It's one step forward, 5 steps back. No matter what they do, they come up with a filter. Okay, fine, we found 5 more ways around your filter.
What was really frustrating was when I actually was trying to look for tips on how to add people to my blacklist even faster than I could before, because it wasn't in World of Warcraft when it happened. You had at one point the convenience of right clicking on the name and just reporting for reporting for spam or just adding to blacklist. Whereas unfortunately in most cases, at least unless someone has a better way for me, by all means tell me. Maybe even making a macro, but I have to manually, type blist, add, quotation mark, John douchebag, quotation mark.
Well, there's been when they send you a tell, you can just go /blist, add, then do your greater than less than brackets R, because that's a reply.
Oh yeah, that would do it too, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
There's
that's
a chance of banning your friends, though, if they happen to be chatting to you at the time.
Yeah.
true, but it's easy enough to unban them if that accidentally happens.
Exactly. World of Warcraft still has the right click to report for spam, and that auto adds to a blacklist. I think that for the player's sake, it's not going to be a fix for them, but it will help the players that do play legit to block them to add a right-click feature for that.
That would be excellent, absolutely.
I definitely agree with that. The only trouble is it keeps coming back on you. As you said, they find ways to get around the filters, and they'll just keep coming back so much that in the end, you just don't even want to bother, right-clicking reply, add to blacklist, typing it all in. Even when it comes in World of Warcraft, whenever I had problems with all the spammers, even right-clicking on their name and clicking report for spam, it just ended up being too much of a hassle because they would just keep coming back. It never felt like it did anything.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people are commenting, because they have this growing list of blacklist players, and only some of them are being deleted, but they're not always deleting the accounts. They're freezing the accounts, they're investigating them, they're doing all sorts of other things as well.
I believe there has recently been a blanket suspension of quite a lot of accounts, which has caused a bit of uproar in the forums. Some people complaining that they haven't, bought or sold Gil, but they had a lot of gil in their banks and that they've been locked out of their accounts. I'm not sure quite how legitimate these people are, because it's quite easy just to, well, frankly, lie about what you've been doing. But it's certainly something to think about.
Not only that, but the other problem that these gil sellers are creating for the legit players is it's destroying our economy. So that way it's making it difficult for those that want to buy gear from the market. They can't do it because they just can't afford it anymore.
There's that's another sort of issue that there is in the game, is the economy. There's a lot of gil sinks in the game, but there's not enough gil fountains. People say, oh, I can make a lot of money selling stuff on the auction house, but that's just a shuffling of funds. We need ways to be able to go and generate new gil into the economy, and that's been going at a very slow rate. Like when they calculated it all, they had made a few little errors, and they didn't account for certain things, so that's kind of thrown things off, and that almost pushes people to going to buying the gil because they just need that money. They don't have the money that should be in the game, and Yoshi has recognized that. He's looking at ways of trying to fix the gil issues.
As a player who's not actually reached level 50 yet, and who hasn't actually had to worry about getting the kind of gear in order to be competitive at those high levels, I haven't really encountered any issues myself as to not having enough money to buy what I need to. I mean, I'm sitting pretty comfortably with, enough for me to do what I need to do, and enough where if I need to get something from the market boards in order to, just get an upgrade that I'm not going to get any other way, I can afford it. So I'm not sure I'm seeing this kind of broken economy that you're talking about. Certainly not the kind of broken economy that Final Fantasy XI veterans certainly saw, where at some points gil buying and selling actually legitimately became like something people looked into because the economy was that far broken.
Yeah, for a lot of people, it was the only way to get the gil needed to get the equipment that you had it. And I knew quite a few people who had actually admitted to buying gil in 11 because it was just so bad.
That's a good point, though, Mina. There's a lot of people saying, oh, I'm making money, I'm not having any problems. Because during the level up process, you're doing quests quite often. You're getting money from the quests. Your gear repairs are really low. But once you start getting into the higher tiered gear, you start losing more money than you're gaining. Like, people are running instances, they're only getting a few elegant pieces to get new money into their pockets, but their gear repairs at the end of each dungeon run far exceed what they're getting back. Plus there's also the tax on the auction house, and now there's going to be coming in with the housing. That's going to be another huge gil sink, and once that comes in, people are going to be broke.
But Yoshi-P's been talking about trying to inject money into the economy in some ways, though, isn't he? Like, I think there's been mention of maybe increasing the amount of gil that is won through doing dungeon runs.
Excellent. That's actually a fairly good segue into the duty finder system, because that's some of the things that they're trying to add to that.
Indeed. It's definitely a concern for the gil. I did notice that he is going to increase. I think he mentioned something about increasing a little bit on the extra stuff you do, not the actual quests. Because I noticed that if you do lev quests quite often, then you do generate quite a bit of money. But not a lot of people like doing them because they tend to get a little monotonous and boring.
And they are exhaustible.
Which is definitely a concern as well.
Because you only get, I think, 8 new ones a day? Which isn't terrible, but they're looking to... add daily quests, PvP, or not PvP, sorry, daily quests where you're engaging with the beastmen, and apparently that's supposed to be a bit of a relation with them, and there's a whole storyline involved in that now.
Yeah, he did mention that daily quests will generate money for people, so that way they can do that, and it's for the beast tribes. Something about the Crystal Tower, because the Crystal Tower is something to do with the beast tribes, is what I noticed was mentioned.
Yeah, and also with the duty finder that ties in with gil sinks is they're going to introduce a new feature where you can see what roles are short in the world and in the games. That, if people need more tanks. So if you queue as a tank, you're going to get a bonus at the end of your dungeon run. They're not sure if it's going to be a gil bonus or an XP bonus, because once you hit max level, you don't need the XP. So they're going to find some ways to reward players for doing that.
Yeah, I did notice that for the Dungeon Finder, or Duty Finder rather, it's not going to be a guild bonus. It's going to be a bonus of some kind that's not guild, something that you can use.
My guess would be that would be something like tombs or something you can use at endgame. I think. Let me take a look.
Yeah, I think that would be a very smart thing for them to do, is to add tomes, because that's what people are really crying for, is because there's only one dungeon really that you can run to get the tombs, and people need them.
Yep, sorry to go back to World of Warcraft again, but despite using the forbidden word here, World of Warcraft
It's almost
did get a lot
unavoidable.
of things right. Yeah, they have done a lot of things right. That's why it's such a successful MMO, and why it has been for so long. And the way they've always done the random dungeon finder, specifically for heroics, they gave lesser marks of, I think, honor or valor, something you could
Valor.
use. Yeah. And it was always very, very useful. I would like to see the random dungeons with the Duty Finder, especially when it comes to tanks. If they got a bonus reward, I would like it not to just be level 50 dungeons, but all over the place, because everyone has a shortage of tanks.
That's actually another good point, because they're actually going to be adding that, where you can just queue up with a random dungeon. It'll put you into any dungeon, which is really nice with the way now you got me saying it. It's really nice the way Final Fantasy XIV is doing that, is the level syncing, because I can take my level 50 character into the level 15 dungeon and play it just fine with people. I'm not gimped. I'm not just flying through it and power leveling people, and it's fun for everyone.
Exactly. That's one of the things I really disliked, actually, about World of Warcraft, is you could go in with a max level character and just plow through all the low level content, running people through it in a matter of minutes compared to how it's supposed to be done. And I never found that interesting at all. The way level sync works in 14 is just, it's superior.
I definitely agree with that, mainly because it keeps the challenge in the dungeon no matter what level you are, and it also makes getting the achievements for doing anything when they decide to implement achievements for doing special feats or anything like that in a dungeon, it makes doing that much more rewarding, rather than just, oh, here's the achievement because you've done it.
Agreed.
Yeah, one of the things that he mentions here is, it seems a little bit unclear, but I think I understand what he means, is for those that queue with the queue in the random dungeon matchmaking will also get a bonus. However, this is a once a day feature. I think what he's referring to is the bonus is a once a day thing. You can just queue into the random as much as you want.
Yeah, World of Warcraft, again, going back to that, does a similar thing. You can only earn the bonus Valor points from that once a day, but you do earn a smaller amount, like I think it's 10 or 15, for repeatedly doing the random dungeons. But the first time you do it in a day, you get something like 150 or something like that, or 250 just for doing it the first time in the day.
And you get a good bonus then.
Yeah, it's definitely worth doing at least one random in a day. And not only that, but every boss in a heroic for that gives you some of the points too.
Another thing they're doing to the matchmaking system is they're adding an MVP for a most valued player for each dungeon you do, and I think it's going to be at the end, where you get to vote on who you think the most valued player was, and the person who wins the vote will be getting a bonus.
Yeah, that MVP system does, in theory at this point, sound really, really good. I'm just worried about people random matching with friends and then only ever selecting MVP on their friends.
I'm sure I've read somewhere where they mentioned it will only be with random matching, and you can't select anyone in your own party. If you've joined with a group of your own friends, you are unable to select those friends as the MVP yourself.
That makes sense.
That definitely makes sense. I didn't see where that said that in any of the interviews, but if that's the case, then that definitely makes it a lot harder for people to just amass MVP in a broken fashion.
I certainly see the advantage of having the MVP in there. It will hopefully encourage more people to be more polite in instances, because I'm sure we've all come across people who are just like, go, 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 let's get everything done. You're doing it wrong. You should leave, sort of people. I hate people like that.
Interestingly enough, in my experiences, and again, speaking as someone who's not hit cap yet, my experiences in pugs have not been that, at least not as much. However, I have heard that, at least a lot of this is hearsay, but I've heard that attitudes across the player base in general, especially towards endgame and endgame content, are becoming more and more toxic, which is kind of concerning considering I'm leveling up a tank. It's a bit intimidating.
It's definitely a concern, especially in a game of this caliber. I know that the exact reason why I had quit WoW and decided to not play is because of that toxic attitude of the end game content. The way that the players treated even the casuals like myself. I wasn't a hardcore player when I was playing WoW, but I was fully capable of doing all the content, learning the fights and everything that they needed me to learn. But the fact that I didn't play the game just to better myself over the game, I played it to have fun and to converse with my friends, was the exact reason why they would be like, oh, I don't want you in my raid because of that attitude. You don't want to better yourself. Well, I'm bettering myself because I'm learning these fights, but I'm having fun in the process. I don't play these games to just have another job. I play these games to take my mind off my job.
You're not worried about your EPing.
Exactly.
In all fairness, though, I mean, that kind of attitude will vary. If, for instance, one is in a raid guild, that will depend entirely on the raid guild that you're a member of. Stu and myself were in a end game raid guild in World of Warcraft right towards the end of our tenancy there when we were playing Firelands content, and we were part of a raid guild that was actually absolutely fantastic in terms of attitude. Very welcoming, very warm. Loved to have a laugh when we were on. Were we on Ventrilo at that point? Insert voice chat name of choice in here. But their attitudes were fantastic, but they were also, I mean, you wanted to do your job and you wanted to do your job well, and you wanted to play as well as you could. But so those attitudes, I think, will change and can change a lot depending on the crew that you're running with. In general, I would say those attitudes are better if you're running with an established group that you already know versus getting a bunch of pickup groups together or people who you don't particularly know. For some reason, that's where it tends to trigger. And I think the problems that I'm seeing with endgame content are coming from pickup groups and pickup group attitudes people have towards other players, whether they're being too quick to judge or not. It could be anything. I mean, the problems are anything from not listening to instructions to being too quick to judge on mistakes to heaven forbid, some of these rumors I've heard of people like trying to ditch out and farm tomes by dodging in and out of content. I mean, there's a lot at play here, but there needs to be something either done to kind of fix the attitudes, to correct people who are purposely making toxic environments for pickup groups, or make it more feasible for smaller groups to kind of band together in order to complete content faster, particularly if you're at a free company where you don't have large numbers, but you have small numbers of people who may not be able to do a full 8 group or maybe even a 24 group with this Crystal Tower coming up. But something that would make the experience much more rewarding and enjoyable for all people who are involved in it.
I can certainly agree with that. I think a lot of the problems with attitudes at endgame stems primarily from people just wanting to farm for the best gear. Anonymity is a big one too. I mean, you don't get any retribution or any payback for any of the bad blood you might put out when you're in a guild. When you're in a duty finder, when you're in a random duty finder like that. You don't have to worry about your attitude. You don't have to worry about repercussions from anyone else. You can push people to be as fast as they possibly can. You can, make fun of other people, tell them they suck, try and make them leave the group. And there's there's just no repercussions from that at all. I don't think they have any plans to put this in, but we never had any problems like this in Final Fantasy XI, or at least I never saw anything, because everything was all on your server. You actually got a reputation on your server. If you were a complete, pardon my French, a complete arsehole, and you went around just, trying to get all the best loot and ignoring other people and just being really rude, you would get a reputation on your server and nobody would party with you. And it really did happen like that.
That's
and
very true.
The opposite happened as well. If you were really good at your job, people would start looking for your name when they're trying to get a group together to do other content. That wouldn't matter whether you're in their link shell or not. People would ask you, say, hey, do you want to come along and do this content with us? And, whilst 11 was certainly a lot harder to level in and everything else, because of that, it felt like it weeded out a lot of the elite players.
The undesirables, yeah.
Exactly.
I definitely agree in that end of things. Now, there is a new game coming out called Star Citizen that's going to be it's going to be a kind of a hybrid multiplayer MMO, and they're going to also have kind of an MVP system in it where you get a rating and a ranking, and people can look at your profile and see what people have said about you, how they've rated you on the missions that you've done for them and stuff like that. So that way they would be able to be like, oh, this person here is unreliable. I don't want to have them in my group. So, but this person here has 5 stars across the board, always gets the job done, gets it in timely fashion. I'm going to hire this person, pay him because he's worth the money. That, I think, maybe implemented with the MVP system to have a little bit of a reputation strictly just for the duty finder, where you have people being punished for being assholes in these duty finders towards other people, and enabling maybe a vote kick system. So that way they see this person as like, oh, kick this person out of the party because they're just going to be toxic to this environment.
Yeah, no, there's always a dark side and a light side to everything. Like, that's kind of the dark side to the duty finders, the anonymity and the being cross server. But when you get it to the light side, is you can actually quickly join a group, go in, do the content, and when you have a group of people who know exactly what they're doing, it's a wonderful thing. But then you hear these horror stories of people saying like, well, we were in a raid, and then the one guy, the white mage, ran ahead into the boss, initiated the timer, locked everybody else out, and sat there and just went AFK. Now we have to sit here and the dungeon's ruined. We can't fight the last boss. There's terrible stories like that out there.
Didn't they fix that, though, where you have to actually engage the boss now for it to start locking people out?
Yes, they have. They've made little tweaks like that. So that's definitely a step in the right direction. And it's something nice that League of Legends is very notorious on the internet for a toxic community. I used to play that game fairly frequently, and that's got to be the worst experience I've ever had with online players. And they have something called the tribunal system where you can report people. And the neat thing about the reporting of the tribunal system is the players help to moderate it as well. So you can go in, you can review, I think, 10 cases a day, and you can go through all the different things that this player has been reported for, and you can vote whether they deserve punishment or whether they don't deserve punishment. But ultimately the decision goes to the League of Legends developers, which are in charge of it all. But that's a really nice system. I like that. They can do that. And then they also added in the honor system as well as sort of a counter to that, where you can give people approvals. This person's very friendly, this person's very helpful, this person's very there's 4 different things that you could pick, and it was a really neat system. I really like that.
That sounds very interesting, and I would like to see something similar to that in 14.
Yep.
Specifically with the MVP. I mean, as Shardfyre was just mentioning, the MVP system in what was it, the new MMO he was mentioning that is recently coming out.
Citizen.
That was it. It would be nice to have a reputation and actually be able to have, I don't want to put in more sort of, gear levels and, social rank levels, but let's face it, sometimes you sort of need that. if you could have some sort of no downvoting system, because a downvoting system can always be abused, and
Yeah.
you don't ever want
Absolutely.
anyone to be plummeted down to the depths where they're never ever going to get a party again. Because let's face it, people do change, and they'll realize that they've not been very nice and will want to change. So always let them have the opportunity to do that. But an upvoting system, only through random dungeons, so you can't select your friends all the time. If it gives you a rank on how many people have said, "Hey, this person's very cool. Yeah, let's rank him up," and you get, say, 1 point for that. You know, you see someone with, say, a white mage with like 150 points, you realize he's been in 150 random dungeons, and everybody's in that dungeon at some point has voted him up.
Yeah. No, there needs to be an accountability system. I think having a bit of accountability to the players will go a long way.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, Final Fantasy XIV is still a baby. It's still young. We'll just ignore the whole 1.0 thing. But, it's still a brand new game. They have lots of room to grow. And I've watched this community grow from 1.0 launch to today. And just seeing the shifts and how the developers do listen to the players. A lot of people say they don't, but they do.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, they really do. And he's really on top of it. Like, you don't have to comment on everybody's little petty whine every time for them to be listening to you. And they don't even have to comment at all for them to be listening.
They just have to be frequenting the forums. And, I mean, it's nice when the developers do interact with their player base. Again, going back to Star Citizen, if you take a look at their forums, their developers are on there all the time, reading forums, reading people's suggestions, making tweaks to what they have. They have an episode of their news called Wingman's Hangar every Friday, and they take questions from the forums, whether they're video questions or just written questions. They'll answer them to the best that they can. Now, they can't answer all of them, obviously being a game in development, but because they don't want to spoil anything. But they're a very, very transparent company, which is great because people know what they're up to. They know what they're doing because the fans themselves are the investors. They do not have any funding from publishers, don't have any investors backing them. It's all from the fans, so they're able to be that. Exactly. They're able to be transparent with their fans, so the fans know what they're doing. That's what the gaming community needs more of, is companies willing to be transparent with their fans and being like, hey, this is what we're doing. What are your opinions?
Yeah, that's what the letters from the producer live are. Like, Yoshi, you'll get on. The only problem is there's a bit of a language barrier, but they are communicating. You just need to be paying attention and know where to look.
Exactly, and that's one thing that I have noticed about 14 is that communication between the player base and the developers, in that I've seen definitely some changes to the game that are positive. I haven't exactly seen any negative ones yet, but they've definitely been addressing concerns of the players that are legitimately trying to do this, and they're not listening 100% to the whiny 2% of the community that are the loudest voices. They're listening to the quiet players too.
Being in customer service, is one thing that I've noticed is a little quote that I remember hearing was, a happy customer will tell maybe 4 or 5 people of the service they've received. An unhappy customer will tell 10 to 15 people. So it's just that bad news travels faster. Unfortunately, it's just the way society is. Well, how about we move into some of the stuff that they're going to be adding in? Some of the new things that they're coming out with, because it's a growing game, and patch 2.1 is on the horizon.
That certainly sounds fun.
Indeed.
I just gotta find it. Okay, so some of the things that they're adding in is the PvP system. I'm not sure if you guys had a chance. Oh, you may not have been, because they did a brief PvP trial during the open beta where only 1.0 characters were allowed to play it because they were the level 30 and they were able to join it. It was really chaotic.
Yeah, I was just trying to find it on the right page, and I think I found it now.
The PvP is really nice how they're doing it in this. It's not open world PvP, because Final Fantasy has never been about killing other players, and whereas World of Warcraft, it was based off of an RTS, so it had that big premise for an open world, big wars against other players. So in this, they're having it in a specific area called the Wolves Den. It's going to be at first it's going to be 4 versus 4. Eventually, they're going to have 8 versus 8 battles. They're going to have something called front lines, which is like you storming castles. I think they haven't really explained a whole lot. Yes, that sounds interesting. And it's going to start from levels 30 to 40 to 50. So you're not going to even be able to get into it until you've gone and gotten a job, basically.
All right, I can just see myself going in there as a white mage and being killed over and over. Kill the healer.
That's some of the concerns that people have had too. Is the black mage has that repose, which sleeps the person, and during the 1.0 trial that they had there, the black mage would just go in there and sleep everybody, and then they would be dead. There was just nothing you could do against it. So they have PvP specific skills that you'll be able to use. One in particular will nullify that sleep. You can use that, and boom, you're out of your sleep.
That's fantastic. I mean, one of the things they've been mentioning is, as you said, the skills in PvP. There'll be a lot of different skills in PvP than from PvE or the story quests, and I'm so happy about this because once again, I'm going back to World of Warcraft. I'm so sorry. I keep mentioning the forbidden word, but hey, you can't reach me. I'm all the way over here, so that's fine. World of Warcraft seemed, in my opinion, to get quite ruined because of abilities that were used in PvE and PvP, and it always seemed to me like they were always rejigging all the abilities so it wouldn't be overpowered in PvP, but it would also affect all the story mode, all the raids, and everything else you would do. And I'm so happy that they've got different abilities. I'm not sure if all the abilities are going to be separate for PvP or if just a few of them are. But what I'm hoping not to see is our abilities being changed because they're overpowered or underpowered in PvP, because we don't need that.
Yeah, it can be a nightmare trying to balance a game between the two, especially when everything is all cross usable. Because when you're doing PvE, it's a scripted battle, and it's very easy to predict. You can make a plan of attack. When you're doing PvP, it's a completely different ball game.
Yeah, and people will take advantage of every little sort of glitch or ability they possibly have to get the maximum out of it. It's where min-maxers thrive, is through PvP.
Like with the sleep. And they're going to be doing that. They're going to have some skills from PvP that you can't use in PvE and vice versa. So that's really good. I'm happy about that. And they're also going to have some PvP specific gear, and it looks like it's all based off of animals. Like there was this really awesome snake outfit, there was a lion outfit, and a fox outfit, and I'm like, ooh!
Do I get a badger outfit?
Badgers! We don't need no stinking badgers!
Yeah.
Badger healing people? Never.
Now, with that whole abilities you can only use in PvP, going to Rift, they had, for every class that they had in that, they had 8 different talent trees that you can select from. And depending on what you selected for your talent trees is what your role in a party was and stuff like that. But every class also had another one of their souls, which was a PvP specific soul, which had all your PvP abilities that are only useful against players. And then you had your diminishing returns, obviously, on stuns and stuff like that. But those souls had all your abilities, like to remove negative buffs, to give you a quick boost, to reduce damage versus players, to increase damage against players, that kind of stuff. And that soul was specifically used for PvP, so you wouldn't be completely destroyed. The problem that I had seen with that soul is that you had to gain your ranks through PvP before you could increase a tier in it, regardless of your level.
So it's like leveling up a completely separate class.
Exactly.
So in this situation, if you started off with a level 50 doing your PvP stuff, you would have to work through at level 50 trying to get all the stuff from 30 to 40 and up. That sounds like it'd be really frustrating. They're going to have a point system in this here too, where you can trade in those points for different skills and armors and stuff.
That sounds like a really good idea for them to do, to be able to trade in the PvP points. My only concern are people who constantly farm that and then you have your new players getting into PvP and just getting wrecked by these people.
Well, hopefully they'll have something similar to the Dungeon Finder where it will match you up with appropriate levels and appropriate gear. Otherwise, I can definitely foresee what you've just said.
That might not be too far off the mark, because he's also mentioned something about there's going to be a matching system where if you go in for a duty finder, you'll only be married up with other random players. But if you decide to go into a PvP match with 4 of your mates, you're going to be set up with only another basically matched up group. So you're never going to get into a situation, apparently, where you have a setup group versus a random group where you're just going to be absolutely trounced. So, which is good, because that was always my fear doing PvP. So it's not necessarily, far-fetched to have people of different ranks being, matched up against other people of ranks.
Exactly. Nice.
That does sound very good to have, because that was the problem with World of Warcraft for their PvP that I did. If I went into a battleground with 4 of the people that I would PvP with, we would just completely wreck other groups that weren't just completely random because they didn't match against pre-set up groups.
Yeah, and it's all in an arena where you choose to go there and do it. I got really frustrated with World of Warcraft because I'd get to a point where I had to do quests in a PvP zone just to progress the storyline, and there was one time where I got spawn camped for just about an hour, and I was just ticked. I gave up after that and I quit for the day. But people love griefing.
Yeah, that's definitely a concern. Now, I did enjoy World PvP. It was a lot of fun when I did it because I played it on a server that was a PvE server where you had to be flagged for PvP. So if you were not prepared for PvP and you're flagged, well, you're going to be screwed. So if you're in PvP gear, have a PvP setup, and you're flagged for PvP in a zone, then you're fair game.
Yep. Well, moving on, there's also housing. That's got me happy. I was a little worried, though, because during the open beta, they had housing, but it was only in Limsa Lominsa, and all you could do was wander around and look at houses. You couldn't even go in any of them. And,
damn, do they look pretty, didn't they?
Oh, God. Yeah, I spent a good hour in there just wandering around, looking at the houses, and I'm like, ooh! And
did you do the thing where you were running up and down the beach in front of Limsa Lominsa's shore area? Did you see that? They've got like a full-on beach up there up front, almost reminiscent of Costa del Sol, where you just kind of get in your heat-resistant gear, be run up and down the beach going, I'll be there,
I'm ashamed to know
you be here. Yeah.
We need Proska to go running up there with her Rogadin and have a Baywatch scene. Bow, chicka, wow,
bounce.
Make sure she's in a bikini for it.
Oh, who's going to be David Hasselhoff?
I will be.
Oh.
Awesome. Now I'm really excited. I was a little concerned though, because they did say in some of the earlier stuff that it's going to be Limsa Lominsa housing coming in. And I'm like, oh, just Limsa? I'd really love to see the other 2 zones, but it sounds like all 3 housing areas will be in there from the start. I'm like, yes!
Excellent.
I can't wait to clutter your entire house with all my junk.
And they have a specific team that is working on housing, so it has its own separate little patch that's going in for updates. So it's going to have a focused team working on housing upgrades, which is cool. And it's going to start off with 380 different pieces and parts that you can use, which is excellent. And the crafters are going to have a whole lot of fun.
Oh, yes, we will.
I know where I'm crafting now.
That's definitely something that I definitely want to mention, is that I have yet to do the crafting, but having the crafting as separate classes is kind of interesting. Normally you just pick a couple crafting things that you do, then get bored of it, level up, because it's the only way you can do anything useful. But it's in a lot of MMOs I felt that crafting was kind of tacked on, and that you don't get anything out of it. Like for World of Warcraft or Rift, anytime that I got a crafter up to their maximum crafting skill, their ability, like their ability to create like that high level 50, level 60 armor, it gets replaced right away. I found gear in dungeons that was far superior.
Yeah.
I
Well,
having a
one of the things that they've been saying about the crafted gear is you can craft the high quality gear, which is good as a starter to go into the dungeons to get the better gear. I can't see that really being sustainable, unfortunately, but they are having other things now with the housing, especially where the crafters will be a very integral part of the world, which is great news for crafters.
I'm looking forward to people being able to. I'm not sure if it's been mentioned yet, but I'm very much hoping that at some point we'll have our little retainer bell there, and maybe that's crafted, and maybe a market board in there as well that you can craft, so you can do your auction houses and everything from there.
Well, speaking to that, they are going to they want to have like a little kiosk you can put outside where you can put a retainer and they can sell stuff right outside your house.
Sugar dates and figs, sugar dates and pistachios.
indeed.
Hot buckets,
Oh.
come and get your hot buckets.
No, that's definitely a very good thing, because most crafters in, like, say, World of Warcraft, the only useful crafters in that are enchanters and jewel crafters, because they put enchants on weapons and gear, and then you get gems from jewel crafters. In this here, all the crafters are going to have something to do, because they'll be building stuff for houses, building stuff for all sorts of other things, and that actually gives you that incentive to be one.
That was kind of smart how they did that too with the materia, because you mentioned the jewels, and that made me think of the materia system they have. If you want to have materia melded into your leatherworking gear, you need to have leatherworking to put it in, not just the alchemist is the only one who can put it in. Each piece of gear that you want to put it into, the class that can repair it is the one that needs to put the materia in. So that helps to spread out the crafters.
Also, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there's actually a lot of incentive to leveling multiple crafting classes, as one of my friends found out. He's an absolutely avid crafter, and he's taken, for the moment, every crafting class to 15. He started out, he wasn't a legacy player at all. And in taking every class to 15, as you might be aware, when you get to 15, you get a special ability for your crafting class that's specific to your crafting class. Things that will, for example, generate 30 durability over the next 3 turns, or will allow you to definitely make progress on your craft, but at like 90% of what it normally would be versus 100%, but like it's a guaranteed success. So if you spread out skills from the other classes, you can end up importing other skills from other crafting classes to the point where you are making things in whatever craft you actually want to be working in so much more successfully than anything else before. I think the story he gave me was he was a level 17 culinarian, and he was making level 17 food crit 100% of the time.
Nice.
Could guarantee
You're back.
crit
I've just got to go
everything.
do some crafting now.
So it's possible. It's the depth there for crafters is just absolutely astounding. And so even though I would also, compared to other games, have concerns as to whether or not my crafted gear is going to hold up as I progress, the utility that they all have with one another as you move up seems to be really, really high. And it's very exciting to see what's going to happen as we move into housing and see, maybe a woodworker's making, benches and tables, culinarians making things, weavers making dolls. Like it's really exciting. But I'm so pleased that the crafting in 14 is in depth. It's really engaging. I love spending time crafting. It's way more than just hitting a button and just getting something pushed out,
Which
having to sit there and make it.
Not also level 50.
Yeah. Now
We're not going to talk about my alt habit. on
Yeah.
Mog News, all right? We're not going to talk about the fact that I can't take anything above 36 because I just want to keep playing everything else.
Well, that's the beauty and the curse of having the class system that they have in here, the armory system, where one character can be everything. You don't have to make alts and go through all the boring beginning stuff every time you want to try something new.
Unless you want to look prettier.
Yeah. Well, and for that, they have the Files of Fantasia, which I think eventually they're going to have available through other means, which allows you to remake your character. You got keep the same name, but you can remake your character. You can change him from Rogan into Lalafell if you feel like it. I was wandering through the market wards or the Hawker's Alley at Limsa Laminsa, and there's just people crafting everywhere. It's a mess, and there's chimes everywhere. And one thing that's really neat coming with the free companies is there's going to be a basement workspace where you can go to craft, and you'll get a crafting bonus in there, which is cool.
Ooh,
That's
that I
cool.
didn't know.
Yep, we're all going there.
They're trying
That
to
is
encourage
awesome.
people to spread out and go elsewhere. Oh, don't whip out your crafting in public. Nobody wants to see that.
But I might high quality it.
You might make them jealous with the size of your crafting.
Watch me buff my jewels.
I just made a hot dog. Galka sausage,
Jewel.
anyone?
Oh
Word.
Yeah, I went there.
no! Don't pull out bad auto translates from 11. Don't do it. It's not
God.
worth it.
Oh, that's
Oh,
awful.
let's keep it G-rated. Come on.
One of the things that he hasn't done yet is released a price point for any of the houses, because there's going to be a small, a medium, and a large-sized house.
Oof.
And he doesn't want to say what the prices are because he needs to fix the guild economy first, where there's more fountains coming into the economy and help to deal with this friggin' guild seller issue. So once he's closer to releasing patch 2.1, which is supposed to come out before the end of this year, he'll do some prices then.
You know what? I don't think even he knows what the prices are going to be yet. I reckon once he's sorted out the guild issue and they examine the average guild that, you know, free companies and everyone has, then I reckon they'll put a price out. But until they get that sorted, I don't think they actually have a price in their heads yet.
No, well, they want to have it attainable, but not something that everybody's going to just go, oh yeah, I got 200 gil, I can go get one.
Yeah. Now, I think with his injection of Gil into the economy, if he does it with the right amount, it might ease some of the Gil selling that's going on, because people aren't desperate for Gil to be able to get what they need.
Exactly.
They can just go do a few things, and then now they have enough Gil for what they need, but not so much that it's destroying the economy. Because that's like, if you go to, say, real life, where Germany, back in, I can't remember the year it was, to try to get out of debt, they decided to start printing more money, which devalued their economies to the point where
$60 for a loaf of bread.
Well, where the Deutschmark was completely worthless at the time.
I remember hearing a story about that, about someone who had an entire basket full of cash, and they went down to buy some bread or something, and someone ran up to the basket, dumped out all the money, and stole the basket.
Yeah,
Because the basket was worth more than the money.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
It's
how true
all-
that is.
I wouldn't be
I'm
surprised.
Sure it was true. I'm sure it was true, because the Deutschmark at the time was completely worthless, because all they did was decide to print more money so that way they could pay their debts, but in doing so, they devalued it to the point where it was worth pennies.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's a bunch more stuff coming in for 2.1. Like they're adding a couple of specialized fates that are sort of references and nods to other games. Final Fantasy XI, if anybody played that and remembers Shantoto, she was the little black mage. I guess they're going to be having a fate with her in it where she's friggin' ginormous. I saw some screenshots. I'm like, oh my god, that's the biggest small person I've ever seen.
She looks exactly like I remember her in 11-2, staff and everything. It was brilliant.
She was scary
Oh.
enough then, but now she's like 50 feet high.
Yeah, and when you win
She's
that,
gonna
Yeah.
stomp on us.
when you win that, you get a little Shantoto minion to follow you around. And if anyone's a Dragon Quest fan, there's going to be another fate where you fight one of the giant golems, and again, you get that as a pet for a reward.
I do
Wow.
hope that those fates are very rare and popping up, because that way
Yep.
you actually feel like you earned that pet, not, oh, I'm just another person with this pet.
It's going to be along the lines of the and there's also the lightning fate, which is the same deal. Lightning from Final Fantasy 13 is going to be in the world. I think there's going to be a whole quest chain that goes with it to explain why she's in, what she's doing there, and her leaving, which is
They better
is
have
nice.
some airtight
service.
writing on that, because
Uh-huh.
dang. Ugh.
I kind of just groan about that. I didn't like Final Fantasy 13, but that's a personal choice.
Just like me, I haven't really liked a Final Fantasy since number 6, really.
9 was my last fun one, but this one here has really brought it back for me. This Final Fantasy 14.
I just thought it was an odd choice to put her in with everything else, and the crossover with Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy 13, seeing her in, oh my! If you ever get a chance to look at the promotional page for Lightning Returns 13, there's so many costume changes in that game that are references to other games. Seeing Lightning dressed as Aerith with a shield that looks like a flower basket. And her original staff, and just
So much makes you groan.
well, okay, on one hand, I feel wrong saying that because I actually love Final Fantasy X too. So costume changes are something I can't really complain about, because I thought that game was the mechanics of
I
the
won't
battle
judge you.
system I really enjoyed. I really
I
enjoyed
will.
the battle mechanics, and no one's going to make me say otherwise. But just oh my days, just Aerith Flower Shield. No, Lightning, you're a strong, fantastic woman. I don't need you to be hopping between worlds to show us how cool you are. You're pretty neat as it is. Just leave it. And don't be a Makote, God.
Yeah,
apparently
she was
there
a
is a
Makote.
apparently there is a precedent set that she hops dimensions and hops worlds, so that's how she gets into 14. It's apparently she has a following and a fan base, so I guess I can't begrudge him.
How did that happen?
All I can say is this is a precedence that's been set. So hopefully we'll see other things, because in Final Fantasy VII, Cloud disappeared into the live stream for a time, and he was just gone. Where did he go?
He went to Final Fantasy
14?
Tactics. I went
Oh.
to Tactics.
Way to burst my bubble. I hate you.
I was very disappointed when he
Aerith
came
was
back.
also in Tactics, actually, as a flower
Yeah.
girl. But
One of the things I've noticed is that there is between 14 and Tactics, there's a lot of similarities in the way that the games play.
Yes, I love the job system, the class system. My only gripe is I really wish that the jobs has started at level 1. You got to go through the whole thing with them. I don't like how they're tacked onto the classes, but I can live with it.
As they're kind of like another separate class entirely, you're thinking, right?
Exactly. My hope, too, in the future is they have classes, jobs. I hope they get advanced jobs. That's something I haven't seen in a long time. Since Final Fantasy 1, was you had your white mage and black mage, which upgraded to a white wizard and a black wizard. Haven't seen any wizards in Final Fantasy since then.
No, and you know what? That's a good point. I think that they should eventually maybe implement advanced jobs, so that way you have more stuff to do. And I think with what they should do, instead of increasing level caps, is do like a lateral progression rather than a
Vertical.
vertical progression, because that there's a problem with vertical progression in that you now run into getting new gear. It happened with WoW with their item level increases every time they release an expansion.
Yeah,
especially-
people get very frustrated with that because they've worked so hard to get this gear when it first came out, only for it to be replaced with very low-level gear from the next area that just released.
I really dislike that.
I hated it because I went from when I'd played WoW since vanilla. Admittedly, I've played that game for way too long, but when I went from vanilla into Burning Crusade, all my stuff from raiding, I had AQ40 gear, and I went into the Hellfire Peninsula was the very first area you went to, and I would get completely destroyed because my gear was just not good enough, and I was getting green gear that was
Replacing.
far, far superior to what I had.
Yeah. But anyway, bringing it back to Final Fantasy XIV, there's also going to be Good King Mugglemog is coming back. I got to experience that, and that was a fun fight in 1.0. As you have the big Mog, who's the center of it, King Moogle Mog, plus a whole bunch of his little minions, one for each class. And they were cute, the little Moogles with a black mage hat, and another one with a little helmet and a sword and a shield. And it was really cool. The music was fun too. It sounded very like a total ripoff of Nightmare Before Christmas, but it was a very fun thing. And I think they want to have that in before Christmas because it is very. It can be a very seasonal event, but I think it's just going to be a permanent thing. Level 50 primal battle.
That would be cool.
So Moogle is a primal.
Well, that was the thing. They didn't call him a primal in the other one, but he was a primal style fight. I think I'm going to wait for a bit more clarification on that before I totally comment on it. But
yeah.
Well, I don't know. We've had Moogles being summoned as summons in previous Final Fantasies, so I don't see why it's too crazy. I mean, Moogles are very special, cute things, and being able to beat the crap out of one sounds like a lot of fun.
It'd be cool if you.
I don't think it's ever a good idea to beat up the guy who delivers your mail, Stu.
That would explain the bomb I got last time.
It's like, don't piss off the people who cook you your food.
Yes. Luckily,
also,
I only have myself to piss off on that end of things.
Also coming in with 2.1 will be extreme mode fights for the primal battles. I'm not sure if we're going to call it extreme or hyper or what, but it's going to be an added level of difficulty for people to challenge themselves on, plus one completely new dungeon and 2 hard mode dungeons that are coming in for existing dungeons that we already have. Those 2 add-on or hard mode dungeons that are coming, playing through the beta, they had different paths through Totorak and different paths through some of the other dungeons that have been changed and closed off for the official version. So that to me says, that they've also said this too, is that the progression through the levels is going to be different. You're going to have different bosses. You're going to have different enemies to fight. So it's not going to be just, it's the same dungeon just with more hit points.
That sounds very fun.
And that's one thing that I agree on is you can't just slap extra hit points on something and then call it good. You need to make it an actual challenge, because more hit points doesn't make it a challenge, it just makes it more tedious.
The question is, will they have different bosses for these revamped dungeons?
Well, speaking to Totorak, because that was one I did play, there was an alternate path that you could take that sort of looped back around, and through that path was a mini boss that was a giant Durhan. And you got special gear out of that. Well, at that point, every chest dropped gear, which I miss. But no, there's going to be extra mini bosses throughout it, and I think they're going to be tweaking the main bosses too. Because does anybody remember doing the benchmark test?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know how when that Illithid or whatever it was, the Mind Flayer came out for the boss for Totorak, he had a yellow dragon with him.
I remember the yellow dragon.
That's going to be implemented?
I would not be surprised. I think that was sort of an allusion to what's going to be coming.
I look forward to... excuse her coughing in the background. I definitely look forward to being killed many times by this thing over and over and over.
Yep.
Yes.
They've said they want to do more than just add hit points on, so it remains to be seen. It's mostly just speculation on our part right now, but just from what I've experienced, I think it's going to be fun.
Excellent.
Agreed. And I like the fact that they're putting the Crystal Tower coming in patch 2.1 as a duty finder thing, as not as challenging as the Bahamut raid or whatever it is. And then they're alternating when they update between Crystal Tower levels and Bahamut levels. So that way, every time they update, there's something new for the endgame content.
Nice. Yeah, exactly. And the updates for they're not going to be updating the Bahamut's Coil this patch. They're going to do the Bahamut's Coil and the Crystal Tower in alternating patches. So this time it's going to be Crystal Tower, next time it's going to be Bahamut. And there's whole storylines to come with. They're not done yet. And just that they're adding so much more to it, to me, speaks that they have a grand plan for this game. There's more coming. We've only just scratched the surface of this game.
And that's what I'm really, really liking, and what's really drawing me into this game is that they're not like I played Terra. It felt like a complete game. I got to the max level, and I'm like, okay, well, there's the end game content, but there's no story left. I have nothing else to do, and they're adding stuff to the game, but they're not really increasing story. They sounds like they have an outline of what they want to do, what their story is going, where it's going from there, and they probably have plans for expansion packs for it, with the story continuing rather than rewriting the entire story just to make it fit.
Yeah, it's not going to be like World of Warcraft, how they had, we need to push out another expansion. What are we going to do? Well, let's add panda monks.
Well, now granted, those were... it was so stupid because the Pandaren were actually a joke added into Warcraft 3 at the time. They were not supposed to be seriously there, but the special character you get from it was just sort of a joke.
Poe.
Yeah. And I don't know why they decided to add them anyway, because when you look at it, it's all just one big joke.
Well, it was what they chose to do, but anyway, for 14, coming out in patch 2.1 will also be something called treasure hunts, where you can do... Yeah, you can do it solo.
I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited.
Well, did you want to speak to that a little bit? Because I've never really heard much about it, and it sounds like you have some.
Well, that's the thing. There isn't very much we know about it at this stage, unfortunately. Just all we know about it is that treasure hunting is supposed to be kind of a casual addition to the game, which you're going to be able to do in solo play or in group play. And in the translations that I've read and such, I don't really know much more about it at this stage. But if anything, it sounds very similar to the archaeology secondary profession they put in WoW, and I ate that up. Oh my god!
Nice.
I was a mental archaeologist. Absolutely, I loved it. I loved archaeology. God.
It was a lot of fun to do because you got some pretty cool stuff out of it. Like you got artifacts that you could pass down to other characters because they were account bound. You got pets. You got all sorts of cool little tidbits and stuff like that about the stuff that they just never bothered to deal with in terms of story.
Cosmetic gear.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like the treasure hunts are going to be a blast. I can't wait to see that. Hopefully, with the treasure hunt, they're going to add a thief soon.
Oh, if only.
They also said that they're going to have a hard mode for one boss, and they're not going to say what it is. I wonder what that means. Like, are they going to just have it where it's just a boss fight? Or are they... I almost wonder if that was the Mind Flayer Yellow Dragon thing.
Nobody knows. I'm not really sure. It's hard to say.
Bastard likes to tease us.
Yes. And to be honest, I don't mind that he teases, because then he gets the players psyched up, and then when he releases stuff, and so far I haven't really been disappointed with what they decide to implement.
As long as it's not a hard mode 1017 error, I'm okay.
Later on, it'll be funny. Like after the first expansion was things are all sorted out, and this is just a bad memory. If they added a boss that's called 1017 and he glitches like Vanellope did in Wreck-It Ralph, that would be freaking hysterical.
I appreciate a company who can make fun of themselves and be like, we screwed up, but here's something to remember us by all the time. I mean, I was very much for when the 1017 era and everything else was pretty prevalent. If they had put out something like a little pet you've got just to show you survived 1017, it was just this little arrow that or little screen that went next to you with 1017 written on. Every now and then it would just like go up in flames and disappear. I would totally appreciate that. That would be a very cool little pet to have, and it would actually make me feel a whole lot better about the whole little mess they had with 1017, because if you can make fun of yourself and admit to things, you have my respect.
I think that eventually we'll see something like that. Right now, they just have bigger fish to fry. And eventually, I can see that for sure. Speaking of cosmetic stuff from earlier, we're also going to have the barber shop coming into 2.1, where we can change our hairstyles and makeup and shite.
Oh
nice.
My god, you guys.
Like, I'm going to totally get pigtails and run around. Oh, wait, I'm a Rogadin.
I've already got that.
Would they want to do this to me? Why would they do this to me?
Gilsync.
When they implemented the barbershop into WoW, I was changing my hair almost once a week.
Yep.
And with that, they're going to have constant updates for extra features, new hairstyles, new makeup things, different tattoos for your face, etc., etc.
No, if anybody played City of Heroes while it was still active, literally could spend 2 to 3 hours just designing a character with that character editor.
I really love these letters to the producer that Yoshi does, plus the live letters. And he said he's going to be continuing this throughout the life of the game, at least up until the first official expansion that's coming out. And the next one we should see should be around mid-October. He's shooting for like the 10th or somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to that. You might see another Mog news shortly after that. We're still trying to figure things out. Also, where was I? With the Crystal Tower. Oh, never mind. I lost it. We already talked about that.
Well, only a little bit. Just that it's a big instance. It's not really an instance, it's a raid.
Well, the other thing that that's something I wouldn't mind pointing out here is that it's being a 24-man alliance raid. That could be a bit of an issue of getting people together for, mainly because it's like at this early stage of the game, there's not a whole lot of 24-man free companies out there yet.
Exactly.
So I'm just wondering what their thought process is behind making it strictly 24. Why not make an 8-man or a 16-man one, and then a 24-man version of it as well, like 2 different versions
of the Crystal Tower? You mean?
Yes, so that way you have the smaller free companies able to do it. So that way they don't have the problem of having to find 24 people.
They're going to be having other dungeons stuff come out where you have the 8-mans. I don't know if they'll ever do a 16-man dungeon. It seems to be either 8 or 24. With the 24, you can queue up. If you only have 8 members, you can queue up, and then that's your party. That's all you're going to see. You can go through the 24-man dungeon with your group of 8. You guys will split off through different parts. You'll have to work all together for different parts. And that's some of the things that they're trying to look at, where you're not having to have 24 people just to be able to get through it.
Which is good, because that was the one problem of that I had with doing comparisons. It's with WoW, with the 40-man raids that they had in vanilla, that was a very, very tough thing to get together.
Yeah.
And they were very long instances. They were fun, granted. They were a lot of fun, but being a strictly 40-man thing, it was tough to get together. In 14, it might be easier to get 24 people. I don't know yet. I haven't, like Mina, I have not reached endgame content yet. But when that comes out, I'm just worried about the frequency of it being done with people who want to do it as a 24-man strictly free company thing.
I'm sure they'll have their ways around it. Some of the things that they have said in other interviews is for the for the Crystal Tower, it's going to be like it was in Final Fantasy III, where you have to clear a dungeon to be able to even get access to it. There was this labyrinth thing just outside that you had to go through the labyrinth, you had to do the fights, you had to do the boss, and then you had access to the Crystal Tower. So they're adding that in as well. So there's going to be a prerequisite to even getting in there. I wonder if that's what the new dungeon is, the Phylos or whatever it is. I don't know.
Yeah. I would imagine that's what they're talking about for the new dungeon, because that's a great thing to do. And for endgame content, to gate it is a way to help players. A lot of people don't think gating is a good thing to do, but I think it is, because then it helps players to get the gear that they need, so that way they know that they have what it takes to be in that group.
Make sure they're capable.
Participate properly. Exactly. Because if you don't gate the gear, people can just run in and in their shit tier, their little bitty green gear and do just fine.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that when you're going into high-end
Well,
dungeons.
it's not
because-
even that they would do fine. Like, if you go in there under-geared, you're going to get stomped, and it's going to put everyone back, and no one's going to be able to complete it. You're going to have to ditch.
Exactly.
They say here, too, that the tower is going to take an estimated 90 to 120 minutes to complete, and that includes wipes and whatnot.
Yeah.
They've when asked what kinds of gear and stuff that you can expect to see, they said, it's going to be highly Final Fantasy III inspired. Bleh.
What are you saying?
It's expired. I don't know.
It's still around. People still play it.
Fruit
Oh,
gear.
my coupon's no good anymore then.
Through this content here, it's going to sort of help it be a bit more of a prerequisite to the Binding Coil of Bahamut. The gear that you're going to get out of here will help you a lot in there. That's how they're making the coil a little bit easier, is just by adding more ways to level up, more content. I'm also assuming too, with these the new dungeon and the 2 hard mode dungeons, that you're going to be able to have more places to drop tombstones, so people will be able to get that end game gear faster, and they're not going to be stuck doing Ampedor Keep all the time. That's been a
It's
big
definitely
complaint.
an improvement.
And that's my another concern I have about Endgame is the monotony. If they can keep it spiced up, keep it fresh and new, so that way you're not doing the same exact thing over and over and over, that's going to keep a lot of players playing, because at the end of the day, that's where those are the players you got to keep happy, are the end game players.
People need
Because
variety.
Exactly. People aren't going to always want to be leveling. They're not always going to be level 15 to 30. They're going to be 50 and they're going to want stuff to do.
Yep, so they got to give them incentive to do the older content. They got to give them incentive to keep progressing, and they will. This is a brand new game. This is just the stuff they threw in to launch the game. They have lots of plans. I'm not worried about it. Eventually, they will come out with more stuff. People who've pushed through the end game at this point, it kind of sucks, but don't worry. Don't panic. More's coming. If you feel the need, just quit until the next patch comes out. I know some people will do that.
They need a book that has big friendly words on it that says don't panic.
I was just actually looking at the picture that they released for some of the bosses for Final Fantasy, or for the Crystal Tower. Blech. You see a giant airman. Definitely Gilgamesh is in there. Looks like Heen from the Crystal Tower. I'm seeing Cerberus. Or
You got to have Cerberus.
yes. This is
I have a feeling Cerberus may be the first or the last boss in the instance, because he's always been a gatekeeper.
Well, now keep in mind that they're going to be adding levels to it, so who knows what kind of bosses they're going to implement after that.
if they're having
Damn
a
it,
little.
he will be first or last, I command it.
Well, I'd say first.
I think so too. If they're going to have that gated dungeon to get into the Crystal Tower, I think he will be the boss at the end of that. And some of the things they were talking about with the Crystal Tower is having the 3 different parties of people going through. They wanted to have it where you split up. And they had one section where everybody had to do the same thing at the same time, and they found that a little bit too difficult to try and time. So they've kind of eased up a little bit on the mechanics for that. But it's neat that they kind of have little mechanics and extra features like that.
Yeah, it certainly makes a bit of a difference from just stand over here, move over there, kill all these things at the same time. It's nice. I've not seen any MMOs, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, but where you go into a dungeon and you all split up because you've all got to do something separate to allow everyone to progress.
I have yet to see that. No, I agree. That's a different concept. That's something new, something fresh. I like that. If you can successfully pull off something where you have a 24-man group and then you split them into 3 groups just to accomplish getting to the next boss, or they have to fight 3 separate bosses each, that would be interesting to see.
Yep.
As long as you don't have to kill the bosses all at the same time.
I think
Well,
they're gonna have
depends on what you
different.
do.
They're going to have different entrances, so each party is going to start at a different entrance, and you're going to have to meet up at some point. And it sounds like they're going to have a boss for each group to fight before you can join up. That's going to be
That's
neat.
cool.
Um,
No, I think I think the Crystal Concept, in theory, and Crystal Tower is good in concept and theory. I just hope that they can deliver what they're promising.
Yeah, and time will tell. We'll see here at 2.1, I'm sure. They're also making it so that if a couple people die, that it's not a complete, oh, right, we gotta wipe, gotta try it again.
Yes.
It's not as strict and stringent as the Bahamut Coil is. That is their big end game ticket. That's where they're trying to stump the players and prevent them from doing it. I think there's 5 turns to the Bahamut's Coil right now, and people have only cleared 4th. No, I don't think anybody has cleared 5th yet, to my knowledge, but people are getting close.
Yeah, as of the Tokyo Game Show, I believe he was saying that nobody has cleared 5th yet. There's people on it, but nobody's cleared it yet.
That's kind of nice to know, because I've been in so many games where they've been out only for, say, a month and everybody's cleared all the content, and you've barely even started your character or got up to even the right level or gear level, and everyone's already got it on farm content, and I just hate that. It makes you feel like you're left behind. So the fact that they're releasing new content and the fact that people haven't quite got it all cleared yet makes me feel a bit better about this.
Yes, no, I agree. That was the one thing that concern I had about any MMO I played is I'm coming in as a new player. They've just released some new content, and it's already cleared within a week. That to me screams that the content is not
engaging.
Tuned. It's not engaging, and it's not tuned properly.
Yeah,
it's too easy. And as Zakar knows, I like bashing my head on a wall for hours and hours on end just to complete a puzzle. I played Dark Souls. I played I only have 30 hours logged into that game, but it felt so much longer.
Definitely a good challenge for that game, for sure.
Yes.
Well, we're nearing the end of things now. It's been, we've gone a little bit longer than I expected, but that's all right. There's a couple of things I still want to touch on. Is they're coming out with a DirectX 11 client. This is just kind of technical jargon. I don't really want to get too far into it for people who are going to start nodding off at this point. Sorry, Mina.
What? Who did?
I was going to say, you've been awful quiet lately.
DirectX, excellent. Yes,
DirectX
good times.
11.
Party on.
Yeah,
No, I'm actually very excited about it. It's gonna really improve the game performance for those of us on PC as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. They're going to try and release it in tandem or shortly after the PS4 version. They're going to add more photorealistic effects. It's going to just make things look that much better. It's just going to be an extra polish on the game. People complain that it was a downgrade from 1.0 to this one. Honestly, I don't freaking see it.
No.
People complained
I see
about
it
the
better.
grass. I'm talking to you, Star-Lord. It's going to be a free version. It's going to be a separate client to download.
I do have a small concern about the PS4 release. What's that going to be doing for the PS3 players? Are they going to have to pay extra to upgrade to the PS4 version?
Nope.
No.
Good. That's where I had a concern where they may lose players over. If they had to pay like an extra,
No.
even $10 extra to upgrade to the PS4 version, then I'd be like, well, that to me just screams that they're trying to get your money.
No,
No.
that's not happening at all. What's happening is that people who are on the, and correct me if I'm wrong, Z, people who are on the PS3 version at this stage, if they want to upgrade to the PS4 version, they're basically going to be trading in their PS3 kind of rights into a PS4 code, as it were. So you'll just transition from one system to the other. But that is voluntary and completely free to do that, right?
Yes, absolutely. No, that's a good point to make for sure.
Yes, well, and I did notice at the very end of this year, it says that we don't plan on making much profit from the package itself, which that to me, I was thinking, it's like, well, they're probably not going to charge anybody extra, but I'm not sure.
No, with a subscription-based game like this, they make their money more off the subscription than they do off selling the physical copy itself.
Yes.
Which is awesome. A couple things that they're going to be adding is because the PS3 controller has a touchpad function. They're going to use that sort of as a mouse in the game. Really interesting to know. And they're also making it as a cross-play ability, so you can play it on your PS Vita. That is going to be dangerous.
Uh-oh.
I can see myself sitting back on the couch just crafting and gathering and running around like that.
But will you be tanking a 24-man raid with it?
I don't know. They're a little concerned about that. They don't know how feasible it's going to be able to do content like that. But they definitely want to have it so people aren't going to know if you're on. The thing is you're missing two buttons. You're missing your shoulder buttons, L and R, too. They're going to try and find a way to have that on the back touchpad if anyone's ever played a Vita.
Never had a chance myself.
The beta for that should hopefully be starting in February when the PS4 is released in Japan, and a month after that they want to be releasing the game. It's just going to be a quick check to make sure that everything's functioning and working, and then off it goes.
That's very cool.
Oh, something I almost missed was the Libra Eorzea. They're adding in a bunch of extra features to that, and I'm really excited. Has anybody tried the Libra Eorzea yet?
Yes,
No.
I have.
What are
Do
your
they have it
thoughts?
for Android?
I'm not that impressed with it.
Oh,
To be honest, no, it doesn't really have the kind of features. Do I have my phone with me? Let me see. No, I don't really have my phone with me. It's somewhere else in the house, but I have it.
so what features is it missing?
Well, I mean,
Off the top of your head.
Oh God. Sorry, I'm honestly trying to think.
I know some of the things that
How and where to find gear. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
when I think of when I used the similar application for the other AAA MMO that is very popular, that it had methods of where to find gear, where to find upgrades, things like that. That was stuff I was way more interested in than just a database. Like, and I know they're supposedly adding in a lot more in. Will apparently add the ability to access, the market boards, buy, sell things. And even those features initially of that other MMO's app were pay to use. And then they dropped it, I think, eventually, along with the ability to chat and free company chat. I'm not that optimistic about where this app is going, to be perfectly honest. I've felt really mixed on the Libra Eorzea for a bit, because what they've released isn't meaty enough it's not finished, for one. I mean, they've got a good base of something, but it's not something where I would think, oh, I don't know the answer to this question. Oh, I know, I'll just go to my Libra Eorzea app and look for it. No, I'm going to go to Google. That's where I'm going to go for my info. And I think a lot of people are on the same page too. For those extra features they're talking about, saying that in order to communicate with the servers, they would have to charge a fee for that service. I'm not sure they're going to find a lot of people buying into that. And again, those are all supposed to be completely optional, which is fine. But I don't think the app is going to function in the way that I was hoping it would when I had my similar app. I used it mainly for free company chat. I'm sorry, guild chat in the other game, saying, hey, I'm going to be home in 30 minutes to start that raid or start that dungeon. Are we still on for tonight? Something like that.
Don't start without me.
Yeah, something like that. And then sometimes just browse for, upgrades, or where can I get upgrade for this chest piece or this helmet, or what's, our clear status, or what raids am I geared for at this stage. There's a lot of utility in that, but I don't know. We've got a lot of work to do.
There's a lot of free stuff out there that does the exact same thing, and
it does
you
it
can
better.
still use the. Well, absolutely. Like you can end with smartphone technology nowadays. There's no point in using the Libra Eorzea because you can just Google it on your phone.
No, I agree. As it stands right now, it's not as fully flushed out as I would have wanted. My first thing is that at the time I was trying to do Brayflock's long stop, if I'm pronouncing that right, and I'm trying to get the Cavalier gear, and I didn't know I wanted to know which chest the piece I needed dropped from, so that way I could make sure that, okay, if it doesn't drop here, all right, now I'm not going to keep my hopes up for the rest of the dungeon. And that wasn't in there. It didn't even say what dungeon that the Cavalier armor was in. I was really disappointed in that. I also wanted this to be a bit more of a companion piece for crafting, especially. Hey, what do I need to make this? Oh, okay, I need this, this, and this. I could look it up on there. I could find out exactly where those items are and find out how to go farm them myself instead of having to rely on an auction house or the market boards. It sounds like these features are things that they know are missing. They're still upgrading the database, so I'm kind of hopeful for that. The things that they're going to be adding in that are going to be paid, and it's going to be a feature by feature basis, so you're not going to pay one fee to get all the features when you only want one feature. Like if you just want the market board so you can go on and sell things and take it in and out of your retainer's inventory and such like that, you can only pay for that particular feature. You don't have to shell out extra money. And the only reason they're putting a small fee in there is just to pay to support the servers that they're going to need to contain this type of information. Because as it is, it's all contained on the thing. It's a download, done, you're finished. It's not communicating with servers. So hopefully that's something we'll see improved on in the future. I'm going to keep an eye on it. As it is right now, it's kind of useless.
It really is. I didn't even use the app for that other game very much, except to see who was online, so that way I knew, just to see who was online is all I really did.
Yeah.
I
hope.
And because everything else on it was fairly useless, because I could just look it up on the Armory pages or go to this other site that told you your ranking on the servers.
Exactly. And they realize that, and they want to have stuff where you can just go to one place and access it all. We'll see how it proceeds in the future. Two more things, and then I'm going to close it out. Item sort function is coming up. That is very...
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
That's frustrating. It's not as bad as it was in 1.0 with the list feature, or when your inventory was all on the list. This is a little bit easier. You can still move things around, but it'd be nice to just click a button and have it sorted. During the beta, they had it where each bag was basically tagged. Like, this is an armor bag, this is a mats bag, this is a whatever bag. And it automatically sorted for you. And I don't know why they took that out. Maybe they were just testing it to see how it works.
I actually was reading that the reason why they took that out is due to server load. Because it was all contained on the servers, not client side. So they had to do something to alleviate some of the server congestion, so that way they could actually have people on servers and not have issues.
One thing they're trying to do to get around that is they want to have it where it only updates that information every time you log out. So that way it's not, I click the button, it has to upload. So I can click it like 5 times to try and organize it different ways, and that's putting a lot of extra stress on the server. So they're trying to mitigate that.
I would like to see them do that maybe client side. I mean, let's face it, you can click and drag things where you want. Why can't you have a sort feature on the client side which just drags it to where you want and it just updates it through the server? But maybe that's exactly what they're talking about. If you're trying to move all the items all at once, then maybe that's a lot of things to update on the server.
Yeah, instead they can just send one package at the end of your session. I think that's what they're trying to shoot for. Another thing they took out from the beta to release that I'm hoping they're going to add back in was, you know how you have your quest tracker in the side there?
Oh,
you have a whole bunch. You have a whole bunch of things, and then you're confused. There's one quest you want to track, but it's not in your sidebar. Or it gets flooded with a bunch of stuff that you're not even doing from other classes. In the beta, they had, just like in the Duty Finder, how you could select a little X box next to the dungeon. They had the same thing for your quests, where you could select which quests you want to track.
This is one of the things they need to fix before pretty much everything else, because there's nothing more annoying than having a load of level 50 quests for a prerequisite to get into dungeons you want to get into, and then I think I'm just going to do a little bit of crafting and maybe some gathering, and all of a sudden you go back to your level 50 once you're done, and there's nothing but these level 4 and 5 quests all along the side, and you're like, well, where the hell do I go? I guess I'll have to press J. Oh my god, I have to press an extra button, but I don't want to press an extra button. I'm lazy.
Definitely some quality of life stuff they need to look into, and they are. It's just going to come with time, I guess. The last thing I wanted to touch on was in the Game Watch interview, they asked Yoshi-P, so are you playing Final Fantasy XIV? What level are you at? And he said, I'm only level 18.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah. The interviewer's like, I'm level 30. I'm higher than you. And this is the best comment, and this speaks volumes to Yoshi-P's character, is he said, I want to go hardcore, but right now, I can't. I don't think it's right for me to be playing I don't think it's right for me to be playing when so many players out there are saying they can't.
I like that.
Props
the fact
to
that he's so concerned about his player base, that to me just speaks volume about his character too.
Exactly. I was really pleased to hear that, and that just sort of made me go, aww.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we've hit just about an hour and a half mark with all the editing involved. So I think I'll close it out. We had a lot that we went over today. Hopefully we covered everything we wanted. And thank all of you for coming and helping me talk about it. And thank all the listeners for listening.
No problem.
This is Zakarn signing off.
And Shardfyre signing off.
And Mina saying, so long, suckers.
And this is goodbye from Stuzack.
See you guys later.
Toodles.
Bye.
Doodles.
You can find us on YouTube on our Mog News channel, and you can also locate us at our link show/free company site, FFXIV Risk Breakers, all one word, .engine, ENJIN.com. If you would wish to contact us and leave us any questions or comments, we're definitely open to taking viewer feedback, and any questions you may have, we would like to start answering them. So, send us an email at mognewsbroadcasting, all one word, at gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope you all have a pleasant evening.
And this concludes our broadcasting day, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Risk Breakers, I wish to thank you all for joining us this evening, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Mog News.